for having me. My name is Matt Alexander. I'm a teacher, a school leader, and a community organizer. And I'm running for school board because we're a critical moment in our history, both as a world, I guess, and as a city. And I think we need leaders who are going to listen to the voices of the people.
It's 20
I've been a teacher for a decade and then a principal for another decade in the San Francisco public schools. I have led community organizing efforts, one of which led to the founding of June Jordan School for Equity. And I now work as a community organizer with Faith in Action Bay Area. So I have a track record of working for justice and pushing for bottom-up change, which is, I think, the kind of leadership we need in this moment for our public schools, so that they can really live up to the values of our progressive city. So I'd be honored to earn your support, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that brief statement. Appreciate it. Any questions for Mr. Alexander? John Mark, you have a question.
Yeah, so I saw you were quoted in that Mission Local article about pods, and so I wanted to get you to elaborate more on what you thought of under what circumstances would you advocate for in-person education, while COVID is still going on, which it probably will be for a year at least. And right. What you think about pods?
Yeah, well, it's clear that distance learning doesn't work well for some kids, in particular students with special needs and younger children. Kindergarten, first, second graders, it is nearly impossible to do effective instruction over Zoom unless you have an adult right there assisting, right? So I think, and then I was actually just talking, I had talked earlier today with a monolingual Spanish-speaking woman whose son is an 8th grader who has autism. And she said she just got a call today, the second week of school was the first contact she'd had from her son's case manager. He basically has 45 minutes of Zoom instruction a day, and that's it. And she doesn't know what to do with them the rest of the day. So I don't think there's an easy answer, but I think those folks that are students that have those types of needs for whom distance learning doesn't work are the ones we should prioritize. I think the pod situation is really troubling because you have this, you have the more privileged parents basically having those same needs, but going and trying to handle them on their own through privatized solutions. And it's almost like a form of disaster capitalism where, the public system isn't, for a lot of reasons, because it's under-resourced, isn't able to address the need, and then the sort of privatized forces swoop in. And so I think that's why we need to really provide a solution that's led by the school district, by the city, with public money and public support, so that it doesn't become a further force of privatization and undermining our public schools.
Okay, thanks.
So there was an article today in the Chronicle about how kids can be as much a spreader, young kids, as older folks. And so I think that really complicates. Yeah, I do recognize the need to be able to have younger kids and those with special needs to be able to get instruction, in-person instruction. But I think with the data that's starting to come out, this is going to be very difficult.
I agree, and I'm not a public health official, to be clear. And I guess what I'm advocating for is that the school district work with public health officials and prioritize, if we can do in-person learning, to prioritize those populations of students. I think that's a really good point. I mean, I also think we have some data now from the summer camp experience. So there were some little mini experiments that happened in the city, but again, we don't know what the infection rate was when that happened. So I guess what I'm advocating for is that our public institutions do everything we can within the bounds of health and safety.
Okay.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that answer. Rich, you have a question?
Yes, it's a question I've asked other another candidate, and I'll ask you. Due to the COVID crisis, it would probably be pretty easy to see that the potential increase for caseloads for resource specialist teachers. So, do you have any plans, or visions in mind to increase, IEP load, whether it be done, at school or
Yeah,
remotely.
I mean,
In terms of
right. Well,
learning,
this
yeah.
has been a problem for years. I mean, I've seen it. I worked 20 years in the district, and I've seen how we've under-resourced special education that entire time. And if you talk right now to special education teachers, paraprofessionals, they'll tell you they do not. The caseloads are huge. They're too big, and the problem is, frankly, it's one of resources. We still in San Francisco spend half of what New York City spends per student, roughly. In one of the wealthiest cities on the planet. So if we're not willing to invest in our public schools, we're going to end up with special education students who are underserved with those types of caseloads, right? So I think that's what I would say. We've got to, the short term, we got to pass schools and communities first in the statewide, but then we've got to look at really changing how we think about resource allocation, including locally, changing the tax structure so that the wealthy folks pay their fair share, which is not happening right now. And it needs to be invested in things like public schools so that kids with special needs can get the services that they need and deserve.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other questions? I'll just give you a moment to comment. On your questionnaire, you noted that you don't have any other aspirations for public service other than the school board, and I appreciate that sort of honesty. I want to give you a minute to express your commitment to this position on the school board. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not a politician. I mean, look, I'm 50 years old. I had a 20-year career in the school district. I'm working as a community organizer, which I love. That's sort of been my dream. So I'm doing this because I was asked to do it by folks, teachers, parents, young people, people that I respect and asked me to step up and take this role. I'm going to approach it through an organizing lens around empowering parents, students, staff who work in schools, close to the classroom. That's what I'm here for. And if I'm elected, that's how I want to serve. I think, even on the school board, of course, other issues may come up. And I think I'm not trying to neglect the importance of other political engagement, but that's not my ambition or something that I would have any aspiration to.
Thanks. I appreciate that response. Any other questions? Kyle, you're on mute too, Kyle.
Theoretically, the space bar will fix that. I just kind of had a...
I think you unfixed it.
We lost you again.
Well, then you'll just have to listen to me the whole time.
There you go.
I just kind of had a question regarding the classroom stuff. A lot of families, particularly those lower income, do not have jobs that they can work from home. So if the kids are home, a parent has to be home, and that's cuts the household income down dramatically, which likely means they'll have to move out of San Francisco. And so how do you balance out the kind of lower income needs to have kids in the classroom with the whole almighty health department regulations?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a tough question, and I think sort of, I guess that's why I appreciate, Barry brought up the point around the health requirements, and that is important. These are weighing really important factors. I think the way I would think about it though is all of this is just opening up and exacerbating a huge gap in wealth inequality and other things that already existed, right? So if we actually had universal basic income, which some localities have done in other places, why in the wealthiest city in the world can't we do something like that? Why can't we provide decent housing at an affordable rate for everybody in the city so that we don't have people that are forced to try to work and take care of their kids, all that together? So I think it's exposing these structural problems. Obviously, the school district can't do everything to solve that. But for example, we're the second largest landowner in the city. Why aren't we building affordable housing on public land, 100% affordable housing on school district land? That's one thing we could do. We could be pushing the city to do more around housing. So those are things I think that the school board and the school district ought to be more actively engaged in. If we don't deal with it, not only will our teachers not be able to live here, but the children that we serve will never be able to live here in the city. So I think this is a really fundamental long-term problem, not in addition to being a problem right now during COVID.
I guess what I was getting at is some concrete suggestions. For example, my brother's sister-in-law are teachers down in LA.
Right.
And so one of the ideas they had was kind of alternate days. So that, child A would come Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursday the next week, kid B would come the alternate days.
Oh,
so
I see. Sorry.
In a sense, cut the class size in half,
yeah.
and then they're at home
Right.
half the time, getting the same lessons, but remotely.
Right.
And
Right. I understand. Sorry, I misunderstood the previous question. What I would say about that is, yes, we need to be exploring creative solutions. I'm not going to offer my solutions right this moment because every school in this district is different. Every school community is different. The quote I gave in that Mission Local article was about how our district needs to be listening to the people on the ground. So that you just mentioned a creative solution. Well, that should be encouraged. That should be, it should be taken from the school level, brought to the district level, and our district lawyers, instead of shutting down the conversation, should be troubleshooting the liability concerns, troubleshooting public health with the Department of Public Health, and then telling parents and students and the school folks, yeah, we can support you to make this work. So I think that would be my response is let's encourage bottom-up creative problem solving from parents, from school folks. The Mission Local piece was talking about what happened at Rooftop. What is their idea perfect? No, it's not, but it's a creative idea from the bottom up. And instead of trying to help fix it and make it work, the school district kind of shut down the conversation. So I think from a policy level, that's how I would approach that is let's encourage bottom up innovation.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, we appreciate you stopping in this evening, and we'll make this interview available to the general public.
Thank you so much, and thanks for your leadership in the party. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.